இருக்குண்ணா. बीज पूरगदेक्षुकर्मुकुरज चक्राब्जपाशोत्पल व्रय्यग्रस्वपिशानरत्नकलशैः प्रोद्यत्करां भूरुवः धेयो वल्लभया सपद्मकरया आश्लिष्टोज्ज्वलद्भूषया विश्वोत्पत्तिविपत्तिसंसतिकरो विघ्नेश इष्टादद श्रीनाथादिगुरुत्रयं गणपतिं पीठत्रयं भैरवं सिद्धौघं वटुकत्रयं पदयुगं धूतीक्रमं मण्डलं वीरान्ध्यष्टचतुष्कषष्टिनवकं वीरावली पञ्चकं श्रीमन्मालिनीमन्त्रराजसहितं वन्दे गुरोर्मण्डलम् मधर्मे मधुकैटभग्निमहिषाः प्राणापहारोद्यमे हेलानिर्मितधूम्रलोचनवदे हे चण्डमुण्डर्दिनी निःशेषीकृतरक्तबीजदनुजे नित्ये निशुम्भापहे शुम्भध्वंसिनि संहर सुदुरितन् दुर्गे नमस्तेऽम्बिके सर्वं श्रीचण्डी महालक्ष्मी श्रीपादुकां पूजयामि तर्पयामि नमः सद्गुरुं श्रीपादुकां पूजयामि तर्पयामि नमः. Welcome all of you for this another session on Devi Mahatmyam, meaning and explanation in special reference to the graduation ceremony and the Mahachandi Homam that is taking place. Yesterday, while finishing the class, I mentioned that we will be understanding why Chandi is considered to be so fierce. I have already written the answer and I published it for your reading. Please go through that and then we will have a discussion as the stages will progress. Now, today, let us look a little bit more into the history of the Devi Mahatmyam, as given both in scriptures and also as scholars have done research. Especially, I have used the references of Devdutt Kali and his textbook on Devi Mahatmyam to understand the history of Durga Saptashati. When we look at the earliest layers of the Vedic thought, we must begin with a very greater understanding. That is, in the Vedic imagination, light was not merely a physical phenomenon. It was a sacred presence, actually. The very concept of light that we have, actually, the sunlight or any kind of illumination that we have, actually. It existed primarily in the source of what is called as Agni, or the fire in English. The divine mediator who carried the terrestrial offerings upward to the gods, Agni. Even the Sanskrit word Deva comes from the verbal root div, which means to shine. So, therefore, it is divine and luminous, and also the sovereignty, the transcendence, and radiance all were linked to the concept of light. That is, divinity is predominantly understood with the concept of light, actually. Light was seen to be the primary source of divine. Even Surya Devata, for that reason, was considered to be the Pratyaksha Deva available to us, because he is the one whom we can perceive, who is the one whom we can see. But rest of the other gods and goddesses, there is a kind of a question, am I really seeing them in real? Are you able to understand what I'm trying to say? But Surya Devata is Pratyaksha Devata. He is there very much, and we are able to see him actually. Let's try to get into a little more deeper when we look into the Indo-European past from this Vedic understanding that we are trying to evolve here. We find the supreme deity as the sky god, the Dios, as in the traditions of the Indo-European system. His name shares the luminous root, the same as Deva. In early India, however, Dios has already lost the supremacy to Indra in the context of when we have to understand between Dayus and Indra. He remained merely as a shining sky, no longer the unquestioned sovereign. Yet, in another Indo European culture, he endured as Zeus pastor in Greece and Jupiter in Rome, and Sky Father who retained the ultimate authority. In India, something remarkable happened at that point of time. The sky father, Darius, and the earth mother, Prithvi, once seen as procreative partners. But gradually, Prithvi gained dominance. The Rig Veda frequently joins them as Dvaya Prithvi, heaven and earth conceived together, yet grammatically feminine. Some hymns from the dayos with Prithvi as feminine is also found. This is the dramatic shift as given in these texts, actually. It suggests that fundamentally the patriarchal Indo European religious structure was reshaped in India under the influence of the powerful goddess tradition. The feminine principle was not peripheral, it was transformative. Now you might be really understanding why am I saying all these historical stories to you, but the thing is that I'm trying to put it in a perspective how the goddess tradition was, you know, it's not historical, it is very much accepted worldwide as a living tradition, actually. You understand what I'm trying to say? So a little bit of reading and little bit of interpretation is always good. So now maybe you will try to understand what I'm trying to say here. So, therefore, what happened was that the early Vedic period displayed an astonishing multiplicity of deities. As we know, we have 33 crores of devatas with overlapping functions. Yes or no? It's not that one devata is, though they have predominant work, each has been assigned, but they have overlapping things that they keep doing with each other. These entire Vedic hymns were also composed centuries by the different priestly clans, sometimes related and sometimes rivalry in nature among those clans, actually. There is no very proper theological system to divide them into different demarcations, actually. Instead, we see a lot of exuberance and convergence and gradual correlationship between various ideas that are given in these Vedic texts, which was composed in various points of time, actually. Within the rich environment of the goddess tradition, what we see is that the goddess falls broadly into the four broad patterns, actually. The weekly defined consorts named after the male gods, they are seen to be wives of male gods. That is number one. Number two, personification of abstract feminine qualities. Number three, nature based deities. And number four, those rare goddesses powerful in their own right, actually. These are the major ways in which we can understand how the entire goddesses tradition has actually evolved as a particular system. The abstract goddesses are fascinating. Names like Dishana, that is intelligence, Shraddha, that is fate, Niritti, that is decay, these were once observations of reality and experiences that the world had actually perceived with everybody, and it was present everywhere. And what we see is that these concepts like Shraddha, Niritti, and Dishana, which were like commonly present everywhere, they became philosophical abstractions and then personified as divinities. For example, take Shri, which meaning light, luster, radiance. Initially, the radiance was an attribute to Agni, Rudra, the Ushas, or others. Only later did Shri became a goddess in her own right, actually. This is what we have found through the research, actually. The research very clearly says Shri means light, basically. And that light was attributed predominantly to Agni, Rudra. Imagine Shri. is actually related to Rudra, not a feminine principle, actually. Later, it was taken by the feminine principles, particularly a very celebrated Shri, as you all know, is what? Lakshmi. Lakshmi. So Lakshmi herself likely had these deep, connecting to the deep, non-Vedic roots, perhaps, which is deeply related to the day-to-day life of everybody's existence. For example, she was connected to the agriculture, like the example of Bhudevi. Yes or no? Who's Bhudevi? Connected to Mother Earth, actually. And since agriculture was developing as a system, there was a divinity that was associated, and that divinity being with earth was seen to be a symbolic feminine principle, and that was associated with Shri, which was none other than Lakshmi herself. And her darker counterpart was considered to be Alakshmi, that is the misfortune, hints at an older dual nature between the goddess tradition. Like there is good versus bad, that we already discussed, that everything has a combination of both the good versus the evil that is there as a part of this world. And we also understand by the time that the Sri Shuktam has developed during the Rig Vedic era, and where Shri and Lakshmi were adopted to be the feminine principles, very powerful as considered to be fortune, because fortune was considered to be very important. Because at that point of time, what happened during the Rig Vedic era, loosely we can see that economics started developing in terms of money as an exchange value, or values of exchange between products. And these products were actually largely produced from the agricultural outputs, so they had their own value, and that value was seen in itself as Shri Tattvam, actually. And Shri was considered to be a very important element in the economic sense. And this is the way it actually evolved to today's complex systems of money, trading, bitcoins, and whatnot. I'm sure you all know better than me. So, this is the way it actually came into existence. The hymns also celebrate the divine femininity. I'm talking still about the Vedic system, in the beauty of nature, the night, the rivers, the forest, and the earth. Ushas and the dawn of goddesses is aesthetically praised and wants to be held very prominent place among the sky deities. And here now comes another deity, because we just spoke about Lakshmi. We now speak about Saraswati, who was originally considered to be the mighty river, which was considered to be the lifesaver and sustainer of the civilization. The name Saraswati is not quite symbolic, because major traditions of knowledge actually evolved in the riverbed of Saraswati, actually. And that's the reason we see that entire river was considered to be the divine knowledge herself, actually. And that's the way the entire the what you would have learned, if you would have remembered, in 8th standard or 7th standard, you all would have heard what is called as Indus Valley civilization. You remember? So the entire Indus Valley civilization developed in the mighty banks of river Saraswati, actually. Whether historically continuous or not, the Rigvedic goddesses tradition actually uh, give us what is called as an overwhelming joy to understand this nature as power in itself, because we were considering that nature is something that we need to control, so that we can modify the nature as we like. But it was very clearly understood that nature, though we might have the powers to modify the way we have built into different ways and means, but nature has its own power. And if the nature thinks, it can completely usurp us within its power, actually. And among to move a little bit more further, if I have to, like, today I know that the class is little bit like a boring history professor taking the class, but I can't help, you have to understand this, because this is the way the historical traditions of Devi Mahatmyam can be understood, actually. So, among the goddesses, the powerful in their own right was originally Aditi. Aditi was considered to be the first manifestation of, considered to be the powerful goddess who was actually recorded and scholarly we have found actually. And why? Because Aditi stands supreme in the early Vedic times, and Aditi appears in a fully formed but not really traceable to any specific natural phenomenon. Her name, Aditi, means boundlessness, actually, boundlessness. And she is praised as heaven, atmosphere, mother, father, son, and all gods and all clans all had to be born from her, who was the one who was first born as a entity. She is both immanent and transcendent, and she is encompassing all existence and non existence together. So, this entire concept of Parashakti that we understand, which is so abstract in nature, the first concept that came in a way that was tangible was Aditi, actually. That is what it is. And this Aditi was considered later with the understanding that she is the cosmic order or the rhythm, the rita. The rita means the change, the seasonal change that happens in the cycles of the seasons. Actually, why the seasons are changing from one after the other is a tangible change that is happening in the environment, and that was considered to be Aditi in nature. And yet, she is absolutely free, capable of granting liberation. In Aditi, we see a profound philosophical movement, that is, the goddess as a limitless unity and the one beyond yet within all. Therefore, the theological vision reaches a luminous climax in the Devi Suktam of the Rig Veda. Here, it is a rare first person utterance. That is, the first time we have a feminine entity to talk or to raise the voice, actually. Till now, there was only male who actually had what is called as the voice giving over the Vedic ways. So, first time there seems to be Devi Uvacha. This is the first time that is appearing in Rig Veda. See, this is a great fight Devi has put up. You have to understand, in a complete male-dominated ways of understanding even divinity, how she slowly made her space to come out for herself, actually, to understand, to make everybody to understand. Look, I am the supreme here, and I have to play safe games to make sure that I reach the topmost layers actually. And it has been systematically, it has been done, recorded by, thankfully, to our scholars. So coming back, uh, in the Devi Sukta in the Rig Veda, the goddess, first time she speaks, and the first thing she utters, you know what? She doesn't say anything else. She says, the very speech which you are all uttering is me, actually. I am the Vak. She claims it, actually. She claims what? I am the Vak. I am the speech in itself, actually. Then let me claim anything else, actually. So whatever you have spoken until now, whatever you're going to speak now further, everything is me. So she finished it there, actually. You see the supremacy that she claimed, actually. She didn't want it to say, I am this, I am that. No, she's not doing any of that. She just made one sentence, which was what? Aham Vak Bhavati. What? I am Vak. That's it, over and done with. So therefore, connecting with the Vak, the identity or the idea of Vak in Rig Veda, that is the first person utterance, the goddess, when she spoke and identified herself as Vak, that is speech, it was immediately linked with the previous ideas which was there, that this Vak is related to Aditi, Shri, and Saraswati, because it is a feminine principle. So immediately there was a kind of a correlation that was made with these ideas. And the, and all this growing feminine principle with the theoretical understanding of Vak being the central understanding started to gain consciousness or momentum in the society, and it moved through the entire societal stature in the various ways, because when she was Vak in itself, and Vak being the center of our human civilization, because vak, the speech is what is the foundation for us to communicate, and that communication in itself is Devi, and it was considered that she is the primordial aspect of everything, including all the gods who were known until then, actually. Therefore, she was proclaimed that to be the one who is to be seen, who is breath, and who is heard. All abide in her, though they do not know it. She pervades heaven and earth, yet transcends them. She is the sovereign mother who upholds the universe. This was the understanding that was derived by all the scholars, in other words, the rishis who were present. This Rigvedic hymn further brings out what is called as an immeasurable importance to us students. It formulates, perhaps the first time in Indian literature, the vision of a single supreme goddess who was luminous, who was all pervading, transcendent, yet intimate to everybody, actually. Because what happened was that in the other traditions, or in the other systems within the purview of the Sanatana, what we see is that gods were seen to be distant deities, actually. But only after Devi came in, though she was considered to be a distant deity who was very powerful, but she was immediately identified with the understanding that she is mother to everybody. So that brought in immediately what is called as an interpersonal experience for everybody, actually. Everybody could connect with her, including the Devatas to Manushyas, even to the animals they were there. So they could immediately connect with Devi, actually. Devi as nothing but mother herself, actually. That she is the foundation, and this foundation brings in what is called as the bija, or the entire elemental Shakti for Devi Mahatmyam, because the entire proclamation from the world, including Devatas, Manushyas, Rishis, Muni, Ghanas, Mrigas, everybody proclaim O Namas Chandika, yay, which means what? The sum totality of the entire power is that Chandi, who is the supreme power, actually. And that supreme power, who is considered to be Chandi, it is her life history, or it is her biography, which is embedded in the text, which is called as Devi Mahatmyam, or otherwise it is called as Durga Saptashati. What begins in the Rig Veda as light, as radiance, as boundlessness, as speech, later emerged as a fully articulated understanding of what was called as Mahadevi. Mahadevi, actually. Because she's just not a Devi, but she is Mahadevi, because she has systematically, they have derived the understanding of who she is from, as I said, from the various aspects of connecting the earth versus the heaven, and then connecting the earth as an element, and then seeing her as Shri, and then as Saraswati, and as Aditi, and then moving forward to see her as Vak herself, as the concept of Vak, and how the Vak pervades in every entity, and that every entity is being pervaded, so she is the mother of everybody, and that mother as an interpersonal relationship that is established between the divine and between the divinity, and understanding the divinity and perceiving the divinity is nothing but understanding the entire cosmos, and that entire cosmos is nothing but Mahadevi herself. And to understand this entire foundation of this, who is this Mahadevi, and what is my relationship with the Mahadevi, and with my relationship with Mahadevi, how can I put an end to my sorrows and miseries, is the central articulation in Devi Mahatmyam. And this is what considered to be the supreme Shakti. To understand this concept is the actual supreme Shakti that is available in this world. So the one who will understand this is going to acquire that supreme Shakti. Thus, from Agni, flame, to Aditi's boundlessness, expanses from Shri's radiance to Devi's self revelation, we witness not merely a mythological development, but a profound reshaping of religious consciousness in itself, actually. The gradual recognition that the ultimate shining principle of existence is feminine, luminous, sovereign, and absolute, who is none other than your mother herself, which you are supposed to understand, and it is high time. That is what is the history of Devi Mahatmyam. Thank you so much, and I'll connect with you all tomorrow with another beautiful concept to continue with Devi Mahatmya Charitram. Let's do the Mangalam and finish off the session. सर्वमङ्गलमाङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थसाधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके गौरि नारायणि नमोऽस्तु ते जयन्ती मङ्गला काली भद्रकाली कपालिनी दुर्गा क्षमा शिवा धात्री स्वाहा स्वधा नमोऽस्तु ते सर्वं श्रीचण्डी महालक्ष्मी अर्पणमस्तु तथास्तु. Thank you so much. See you all in tomorrow's class. Namaskaram.